This podcast contains explicit content.
You are listening to Hardly Focused.
I'm going to Pizza Hut.
Shut up and move your butt.
Dissecting the news, one tangent at a time.
That's right, because everyone in this house loves pizza.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hardly Focused. We are part of the Solid Listen Podcast Network. You can get us at hardlyfocused.com. It's Jack Gill, Zach Ward. We are live on YouTube. You can subscribe to us at hardlyfocused.com/YouTube. Watch us there. We're also on your favorite podcast app. Just search for Hardly Focused. And, there is an elephant in the room, Zach, that we need to address. And might as well just rip that bandage off and just start talking about it now. And that obviously being the results of the 2024 presidential election, which I think I would speak for the two of us here and then probably everybody else involved with Hardly Focused when I say, boy, was that not what we were expecting.
You know, I really wish I could say it wasn't what I was expecting, but honestly, the day before I woke up and I already knew that I was gonna ignore most of the coverage because the last two election cycles was enough for me to learn my lesson pretty much. So I basically was sitting there, I was like, Zach, really ask yourself a question. Think of all of the news cycle events that we've had in politics over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Are we ready to not only vote in a woman, but a Black woman who, historically one of the most disrespected classes of American citizens, if you look back in history, even a brief history, as the most powerful, most powerful with quotation marks position in the land over a man, even though the man says crazy, deranged, stupid, inane, things that make zero sense. And when I really stopped to think that, if we've really progressed as a society, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna probably just drink and smoke myself to sleep and just wake up and just deal with the exhaustion in the morning, which is exactly what I did. And I'm not gonna say that I was expecting it, but I didn't have high hopes for us because of that.
Yeah, that's sad because
it is.
I kind of felt the same way in that. Now, here's the thing. I am and have always been a bit of a pessimist. And this was one of those things where I just was half of me was preparing for what I would consider to be the worst, which is ultimately what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But that's obviously not a healthy way to live.
No, but I mean, so my philosophy has changed a lot. And I feel like this is probably the minority perspective, because at least I can't speak for all of us, but I will say, at least for me, since I've been kind of paying attention, I've kind of gotten to a point of not so much acceptance as it is I guess on some level it's maybe a form of radical acceptance, because it's more just I kind of just see things the way that they are. The last time he got voted in, I said, well, you kind of get the president that you deserve. And I kind of feel the same exact thing happened in this situation. And realistically, it just shows us kind of who we are as a society right now. Not it doesn't feel good, but when you look at the bigger picture of what led up to this happening, it is hard to the first couple of days was kind of hard to fathom, honestly. There's a couple moments where I was just wow, okay, we doing this again. But honestly, there is, for me, more meaning in discussing the reality of the situation. Because realistically, and I not to use a crazy metaphor, but like literally, this tells me that we are so conditioned, or certain segments of our society so conditioned to want to vote a man into a leadership position, and or not just that also, but being able to the fact that there is a large segment that are able to project themselves into the idea of what Trump represents, because it's less about who he is as a person. Because if you actually look at who he is as a person and the things that he says, then it's like you don't really have anything to come away with. Like you can't really, like, there's zero authenticity there. But like if you don't care about any of that stuff, then you just want to bring in that ideal. And for me, this kind of tells me that if the choice for president was between a woman and literally a machine that stabs babies that looks like a man, we would probably vote for the machine that stabs babies over a woman at this point. I hate to say it as an intellectual person, but like I don't know how else to boil this down to, because like logically, it doesn't really make any sense. And there's a lot of like other deeper details you go into, like how the Democratic Party has run itself. And like I personally have never really, like, I've always voted with the Democrats, but even during the Obama years, I still felt that it was important to be an independent. And like I'm always going to vote the party that holds my interests. But like I just, like, I'm done with being kind of beholden. I've already been done with being beholden to like any kind of group because of just the state of how politics has been like since we've grown up. Because like we grew up during the end of the Clinton years, the Bush years. Like we've seen really is like bullshit for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. So the part that baffles me the most is the just the final number of people that voted for him, because
Well, I have a lot
like
of thoughts
leading,
on that one too.
yeah, but just like leading up to this and just like all summer and even before Biden dropped out in July, like obviously, especially when you're looking at celebrities, musicians, what have you. And I don't know if it's just, I'm not looking outside the box of New England, because I think all of New England voted blue. So I know Massachusetts, especially, like Kamala won Massachusetts, but maybe I'm just not looking outside of the region. But there was just such a big push, especially when Kamala came in after Joe dropped out. And I do think he dropped out too late. I don't know if him dropping out sooner would have worked to Kamala's
Well,
benefit, but 3 months.
here's the thing. The issue wasn't even all of that. Like honestly, I started kind of checking out once I started realizing that this was like what was developing, because like I didn't know how to feel about it. Because if you look at the bigger picture, what the Democratic Party ended up doing was they ran a candidate that was obviously having issues with showing a strong intellectual and cognizant face all of the time, and was kind of being dogged constantly about it.
Yeah.
And then instead of like primarying like they should have to actually hear their constituents out, they ended up just coming up with this idea, to this Hail Mary idea to have, well, let's go with Kamala. And like the first thing I thought was like, they're really going to push the first black woman president now after everything that's been going on. Like I just like as a black person, I wanted to be excited, but like there's too many factors at work that was just like, you know, we kind of been here, done this. Like I didn't have high hopes only because of how much I kind of already lost kind of trust in the societal radar when it comes to, you know, stereotypes and the things that we attribute to those to like people. And like that's the only thing like I feel like was like the big enough wall, especially because there's a lot of people I feel like even more that like like not to call anyone out, but like just from like just kind of piecing things together and hearing different perspectives. I know one of the biggest things that like a lot of like um Zoomers is what they call them now, like the Gen Zs, males, like a lot of them like were like voted conservative, and that doesn't surprise me only because like if you like really if you even like stepped into any kind of gaming culture anywhere, like you kind of get a feel for like the vibe of things that have changed. And I just like, you know, it's only one perspective that I've read in, but like I've already heard a story. Like I posted in the chat about this. Like I had a friend who's a teacher who like has like Latino students in his class that were you know, just kind of going off and were like happy about stuff, and then went on to explain to them that like, you know, just so you know, based off of the stuff that will probably end up happening, you guys can be deported. Like it is entirely possible because like of how broad that that could be interpreted. And like I'm already seeing like places on Reddit popping up about people talking about you know, I know these like my neighbors are like MAGA Latinos, and like how do I get them deported? And like we're already that like it's already a slippery slope. If like we're like if we're already having conversations like that in that direction, you already know where the conversations must already be happening in the other direction. I'm sure that there's kids that have already been in school or that have had to endure the last 2 days, last 2, 3 days of like people again, probably just yelling in their face, your family's getting deported. I know you're illegals. Like, so, and that's just like the start of it. Like the whole thing to me is just like, I've given up on people that do not have the ability to at least have some sense of any kind of like awareness or like ability to question themselves or not believe that they're like it's good to like, you know, accept when you're wrong about some things and to question your worldview and question if there's something that you're perceiving that is incorrect. Like that is the basis of critical thinking. And like, you know, I hate to quote Patty LuPone, but like I saw something that she said recently. It's like whoever um like like was responsible for dumbing down like, you know, the American citizens, like they did a great fucking job because we are fucking dumb. And like it's more nuanced than that because like realistically there's so many different perspectives that go around that if you do not have media literacy and you don't have critical thinking skills, then it doesn't matter where you are, you are going to find yourself in an echo chamber of thoughts because that's just the like the algorithm is already like kind of feeding into what we do now. And like it is clear based on observations of other things and also like nuanced topics like parasocial relationships and like you know, like unhealthy habits that people have with their online personas. Like it all kind of tracks realistically. And I don't know, I hate to be harsh, but like realistically some people really just need to be sucker punched and beat up by reality. And like
That's what this is. It's a reality check.
yeah,
This whole thing's a
like
reality check. And like I'm not asking this I guess like rhetorical. You don't have to answer this, but like how bad was not even just the last 4 years, but like this past year? It's like during the campaign, like how bad was it truly that at the end of the day, and Trump didn't win by a landslide, but that he not only won as strongly as he did, but then also won the popular vote too, because that was the thing 8 years ago. And by the way, I said this when Ack and I were doing our live show the other night, how I'm not a religious person, but I was looking to that Professor Alan Lichtman is a sort of beacon just based on his track record of predictions. And this is like, for him, this is a black mark because he had it locked down, and even right up to the day of the election was still confident in his prediction. But then we get to,
that's the whole thing though, Jack, because I remember watching the same thing, and the thing that stuck out to me was the last part that he said, that has no other election cycle has he had so many hatred, like death threats, like actual vitriol tossed at him, his family, and the people around him, in any other election cycle besides this. But that is your barometer for things, though, because people didn't really do that. Like, people didn't really go at him as hard as they did this for him to actually say something about it is, for me, one of those big things that made me kind of pause and like, this could be bad. Because the thing that Democrats miss, and a lot of I want to say lofty progressives kind of get, like, the ones that feel good about the situations when things are going right, and then are crushed when things, because like trust me, like, I am definitely worried, like, I'm definitely concerned, I've had my days where I'm just like, I don't know, we'll just have to take it one day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year at a time, like we had to do before. But at the same time, it is just I feel like they don't understand, or either they do understand or they don't understand, that they completely miss the pulse of what is reality for people, because like there are actually, it's hard to imagine because it is very easy for us to fall into this trap of like, self-aggrandize, like good feelings, like we know that we're smarter and better than these people, like, and like that is a great trap to fall into, and it's a great way to ignore kind of the actual situation. And like, I hate to say it, but ignoring like the working class vote, and ignoring like those kinds of things, and kind of only pandering to like like the whole celeb angle is like, I hate to agree with Ricky Gervais on anything, but like nobody actually, like, should show you it doesn't matter. Celebrity endorsements really do only matter to the people that take in that content, and then if you look in that content, majority of those people are going to be left leaning anyways. It doesn't matter. It, like, when it comes to that, like, you've already got those people. And to me, I just kind of checked out of all of it, because like, I'm just doing what I need to do, because like I kind of didn't want to deal with all the like the parade or anything, or like the fanfare. I didn't want to get swept up in and all the stuff. I didn't want to buy a shirt. I didn't want anything. I was just like, I'm gonna do what I got to do. Whatever happens, happens. This is what happened. I already was prepared for whatever happened. And that's the thing that I feel like a lot of people are missing, is like, I before I could have maybe been a little bit understanding of people being shocked. Now, no, I'm not. I'm have no sympathy if you're shocked, legitimately shocked. It should make sense to you. And if this is the moment that makes you realize that this is kind of always a possibility and the things are going on, then I guess welcome to the world. Welcome to waking up, because like a lot of us have kind of already been here, and that's my perspective. I'm not trying to be pessimistic or dour. I'm just like being realistic about it. It is kind of obvious the progression of where we're at, and if you look at the history of how presidential elections have gone, it actually makes a lot more sense now that I understand the purpose of tariffs and taxes. Is like, the fact that even I'm intelligent and critical and think critically, but even I don't know enough of that stuff until it's become a topic of conversation. It tells you enough about what's happened to our country. And like, I don't know, just like there's things that are obvious that I can't ignore or refute anymore. And that's why I'm just at a point where just like, yeah, okay, we can disagree on whatever. But like the moment anything comes to a disagreement or an opinion of something that bases the destruction of someone else's livelihood as a main point of it, like I'm just closing my ears to it, because like those people have already had their ears closed. So whatever else happens, like they're not going to learn it from me.
Two things,
So.
if I may. First,
That's it, man. It's game over, man. It's game over.
and then second, well, I was shocked. So to see what the results were, it got to the point where election night, I finally went to sleep because I figured, we're not going to have, this isn't boding well, but we're also not going to have final results anytime soon. So I went to sleep, and I had a dream while I was asleep. I was like, it was lucid dreams. And I talked about this in the last episode, but how, because it took like 5 days or whatever for the election to be called in 2020, and just every night going to sleep on the couch with CNN on and not really sleeping because I was just like processing the information as I'm lying there with my eyes closed. Sort of the same thing happened the other night. And first I have what I thought was a nightmare that Trump won the election. And then that turned into, I think I woke up at one point, looked at my phone, saw that he won Pennsylvania. And that is pretty much the moment where we all realized he's going to win. And that's it. This is over. We all thought that Pennsylvania was going to go blue, and that didn't happen. So then I fall asleep, and these are the worst kinds of dreams to have, where you're having a dream, and at some point in it, you become cognizant to the fact that you're in a dream, where all of a sudden it's just, it just clicks like that. Like, someone walks up to you and says, well, Jack, you're in a dream. Or you just make the connection while you're in there, when you're like, oh my God, this isn't reality. What's going on right now? And so the dream was, it was really close. And then Kamala's ahead by 2 percentage points, like 264 to 262. Like we're ahead, or I'm sorry, 272. Like she won by 2 percentage points. And I'm like cheering. I'm like emotional. I'm so excited. I'm afraid that I'm going to wake Becky up because I'm yelling and screaming. And then I have this realization that I'm not in my living room. I'm in her living room at her house. And that's when the dream realization kicks in. I'm like, wait a minute. No, I'm not here right now. Why am I in here? Oh my God, I'm dreaming. And then I woke up in a stir, and the news was still on. Couldn't pay attention to what they were talking about. But I grabbed my phone and scrolled through it, and you can even tell, like, the notifications, the way the notifications, like the push ones that they send out in the news, you could tell that even whoever's writing all of that didn't want to write it. It was just so straightforward. It was just so blunt and to the point. It didn't. You can tell if there's some degree of jubilance, and that wasn't here. It just said, Donald Trump has been elected the 47th president of the United States. And it just left it at that. There was no mention of, if you want to, I don't say look for positives in this, but this is historic in that he's only the second president in history now to be elected to a second non-consecutive term. None of that was mentioned in all of these alerts. Like there is some degree of history to this whole thing. And all the alerts were just like, well, he won. And that was just, and I saw that, and I turned the TV off, I put my phone down, and I went to sleep. And then when I woke up several hours later, look, I am not one to compare any event to 9/11. That is a very extreme comparison to make. I make fun of people when they will say that some minuscule event in their life was their 9/11.
9/11.
But I found some solace in seeing other people say the same thing, where just kind of waking up and you're in a haze. You're in a haze of disbelief. It's half disbelief and half knowing this is the reality. This has happened, and you can't believe it's happened. And you just kind of have to, you got to process it. You just got to kind of just keep going and process it. And that first day, the 6th, that's just how it was. I just had to really just sit with it and just be like, this is it. This is the reality. But then besides the shock, there's also the confusion, which we've addressed, which is, how did this happen? And this is something I think we're going to be, you could spend a long time diving into. And I will preface this by saying I'm by no means smart enough to really dive in.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot
of
of different angles to it. One of the things is, I don't know if I've heard this a couple times, but if you look at like presidential like elections and like things that are going on, like the economy, the state of the economy, the perception of the state of the economy has a lot of factors to do with that. And I honestly didn't fully recognize until like actually within like the last couple of weeks, that like when tax laws are enacted, they don't get enacted immediately, and then you are under them for a period of time. So when Trump takes office, we're actually right now under Trump's tax cuts still, like from his presidency, and then they're going to end when he takes office, and then whatever Biden administration had passed for their tax cuts are going to be what happens for the next 4 years after that. And then when the next cycle happens, it is going to be Trump's law that's going to be into effect. I mean, unless something catastrophic happens and he just decides to just like do whatever with whatever. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But like, but like that's how it should work, theoretically. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand who to blame for certain issues intentionally, so that like people don't know really where to point things at. And it is until you realize that like not even like the both sides bullshit argument, because like I fucking hate that bullshit. Like the moment anybody says that, I'm like, I'm quickly coming to the point where I discount your opinion if you immediately start with that. It's just like it's a lot more nuanced than that. There's a lot more going on than just the simple both sides argument. Like our system works the way that it is, and on a big like for a reason. And it is very clear that the leadership of the Democratic Party doesn't actually understand like the pulse of what people like actually care about is like. I feel like if they actually made the effort to be more transparent, be more open, actually do a primary, actually try and do something that wasn't just them foisting a candidate on everybody and then being like, let's go because we got to do this, and like just vote blue, it doesn't matter. And like, yeah, sure, great, I'm gonna do that because obviously the people that already know to vote for their interests that are going to do that. But like, you're not understanding the impact of the successive like campaigns and things, just where things are constantly dropping the ball. People are constantly like not like happy with the way things are going, which is also nuanced because there's a lot of times when just the Republican Party just prevents us from doing anything. But like people are dumb and they have a short attention span. So like, and like if you aren't good with the message and you don't do things that actually have real like controversial like you can actually concrete say, hey, this XYZ happened and our congressman like literally came and like helped like like a flood like impacted area or something. Like people remember that kind of stuff. People remember when people show up and do things that are actually concrete and tangible and help their community. And like when you get to this point of high level politics where you're so divested from that, like people are already disillusioned because of all of the years of the other like political cycles of things that happen. People are just disillusioned right now and jaded with politics. You have to take that into account. Like that to me is part of how this is possible.
Let me circle back to a couple things first. I do want to talk about the things that people remember. But first, do you think that Kamala's campaign spent too much time focusing on, let's say, humanitarian issues and not enough time focusing on the economy? Because I think that's what led Trump to win is because the economy. And that's
yeah, because people
what
are
I've read
stupid
that,
and they still think that he will help with that. But yeah, I think that's part of it. I think a lot of people looked at her and conflated her with like, progressive humanitarian issues, like, communism issues. Cause like I was like, I just like, again, I checked out because I didn't want to see any of the memes. I didn't want to see the bickering perspectives because I already had a feeling that like it was like, and also I'm just kind of tired because like I've been through enough of these cycles where like the same stuff happens, and I'm kind of tired of us treating our elections like sports teams.
Mhm.
Like I was thinking the other day, like I really hate the fact that like those hats like caught on because like literally part of me just thinks they're literally just like happy that just like their team won. Like that's what it feels like, is like my team won. And then one like it's it it is so inane. It is really hard to like accept that there are people that are just that just don't understand the impact of what their choices mean. And like it's literally the difference between a party that is like doesn't really get much done and a party that actively wants to just like flambe your children, but like not really. Haha, we're Christian values. Like what? Like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. None of it makes sense. And it's literally just people, I think, are so it is so hard to look past your worldview and the things that codify it and the things that keep you safe and the things that make you feel like there's something to keep doing because you have something else to focus on or something else to blame.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that I feel like is more helpful these days, is continuing to talk about things like that and like spreading those kinds of ideals, like self-awareness, mindfulness, accepting that you can be wrong sometimes, accepting that sometimes there isn't a simple solution to something. You can't just be peaceable about things. Sometimes you actually have to think about more difficult steps to take, or and like if you're pushed into a situation where that's where it calls from, like you kind of have to adapt. Like we're humans, we have to be adaptable. Like, and to me, I think if you're really shocked, rather than being marred or like mired by the shock, I'd rather people start being like trying to understand, like holistically, like why was this something that's like that caught me so off guard? Why was this something that I was
Yeah.
not looking like to, that thinking was going to happen? And like part of me, like I understand those sentiments of people saying like like these like feel good moments, or like people are like we know better, we think better, but like we kind of missed the pulse of what's happening. The fact that there are large segments of our population that were kind of like indoctrinated to think in one direction, or only think so deep because they see this person as an archetype of how they are or how they should be or any of that bullshit.
Yeah.
And like for some people it's literally that deep. Like I was listening to a content creator who is talking to somebody who is mad about how much money they have to pay in taxes, and then didn't realize that like since they're complaining about that now, that they're talking about the tax cuts that the Trump administration put in when he was in office that we're currently under right now. And
Yeah.
like and like they just did not, like they were like stunned, like they paused, they didn't know what to say. They just like it's not Biden. Like, no, it's not. Like, where that's not going to come into effect until this January, you know. So like the fact that like there's people that don't understand things like that, it to me is part of the problem. And like there are people that are just dumb, feel disaffected, and are just led sway because they think that things will be different this way because they have a bad understanding of how things actually are happening. There's a general amount of that. There's people that are also, I'm sure, disillusioned, jaded, and exhausted, didn't want to come out to vote, or you're like I'm sure there's a bunch of reasons for why this happened the way that it is. But I would much rather we start being realistic about this instead of assuming that our purview and the way that we see it as ridiculous, as funny, as something that SNL jokes about all the time, as not something to fucking take serious. Like I'm just tired of this shit. Like I'm just like so like I'm like trying to swear so much, but like I am so tired and exhausted, and like I have like that's why like I understand your perspective, Jack, and but that's what that is what I would actually say if I wasn't like so exhausted and tired and trying to be helpful. But like after all of this, I'm kind of with everybody else is just like, okay, like yes, this is bad, but like also please, like, can we learn something? Anything? Can
Yeah.
we learn something? Anything?
Well,
Like this is
to that end, look, we can either spend the next 4 years either being miserable and complaining about this every day, or we can cut our losses. We can hopefully better ourselves. We can make a change for the next election cycle. And that's honestly, and again, I don't know if I'm educated enough to, be part of that change. But I decided after spending several hours the other day in that sort of shell-shocked mindset, then realizing there's no point in just sitting here and just being miserable and complaining about this, because I know, like, I'm upset about it. You're upset about it. I know Ack and Nate and Mike are all upset about it. Like, everyone on this show obviously is affected by this.
right. And
But-
again, like
but-
just to clarify for people too, it's like it has never been Trump. Like it has never been just him. It has always for me been about the shit around him, because I
Yeah.
don't trust the modern Republican Party to
It's an
do
orbit.
anything for people. That is why whatever happens, all we can really do is help ourselves, help the people and groups and causes that are actually for the things that we need. Like reach out your hand for the people that are in states that can't do anything about it, like about anything, and just hope that whatever happens in the next 4 years, we just still can do whatever, because like, there is a lot of fear and a lot of heightened tensions, because obviously all of the awful things and like Project 2025 and all that stuff that has been floating around, people are justifiably concerned.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that same token, there's no reason for us to sit here and like start adding to the gallery of like, oh, look at the lefties crying and upset and like that their team lost, because like literally that's what it feels like. This is not a team thing, like, but at the same time, let them have it. Let them have that moment, because if we're really about understanding and feeling above things, and like we should understand that like this is the time to, if you don't have the perspective, to get the perspective, to understand the things as they actually work, because there's no point in arguing with people that don't. And the only way that we're going to be able to do anything is if we actually understand how things work now, so that we can do something about it, or resist things long enough to be able to do something about it. That's kind of where I'm in.
As Zach just said.
Like, yeah, chacarone, macaron. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not going to spend. I'm obviously going to be on my guard, but like, I don't have the energy to be worked up about it. I don't have the energy to be sad and upset and miserable.
I think it's because
that happened.
It happened, and also like we lived through his presidency during also the pandemic, which was also an unprecedented time. Like we've constantly been living through unprecedented times.
Yeah,
so it's just like it's more just like
See, that's the thing that baffles me the most is like there's that. And then there's January 6th, and then there's been the last 4 years of just persistent saying that the election was stolen, and then seeing just the punishments handed out and the careers that people were willing to put on the line to prove that all of this happened. And it didn't happen, obviously. But like the Giulianis of the world, like what happened to them? And yet, this past Tuesday still played out the way that it did. Like, it's like, did anybody learn anything? I don't know. But just all of that went on. I mean, the first thing I thought is that the way that people reacted on January 6th just says it's acceptable to act that way and react and believe in that. And part of me wanted Kamala to just go and rile up her rabid fan base to go and do the same thing.
Oh yeah, they would never do that. They would never do that. Yeah,
sure, but then it's the same time, like you can, because it happened once before. So by that logic, you have every right to do it.
Yeah, the party that's the party that is afraid of the mere idea and thought and mention of changing precedent. No,
I seriously appreciate that Kamala very quickly conceded and called Trump to concede, and you never know how those phone calls actually play out.
Yeah.
I would hope at least it was a cordial discussion, in that then Biden pledged to make it an orderly transition. I mean, it's in you know they're doing that because that's not what happened 4 years ago, and they just want to go out and just show that, like, hey, we're gonna do it the way that it you came to expect it to be done until 2020. So at least hopefully we don't have to worry about any uprisings occurring between now and January 20th, I guess. But yeah, we got to live with it. That's it. We just got to live with it. If you don't agree with it, you got to live with it.
Please hide the nuclear codes for the next 4 years, please. Please.
I have some faith. And this is, again, just going from reading a few different, because that's just the way I operate now, is that I can't just read I can't read a single article about something. If it's a topic that catches my attention, I got to read at least 3 different articles from 3 different sources to make sure that all the details somewhat all line up, that we're all in the same ballpark here, that one source is not saying something completely different from the other. But Trump's new chief of staff, who he named the other day, and I think her name is Susan Wiles, daughter of Pat Summerall, don't you know, the famous sportscaster.
Oh,
she will be the first woman chief of staff. And that's another thing that, like, it's just the climate. Because again, history, and it's getting glossed over just because of the mood.
Because nobody wants it to be history with this one.
Sure.
Nobody wants to accept that it's that.
But I guess in his camp, from what I've read, she can get through to him. And I got to tell you right now, it's not like she's some young, attractive woman. I mean, she's this Margaret Thatcher looking lady. So, but apparently she can get through to him, and he listens to her.
We shall see.
So unless she's a warmonger who the first thing she wants to do is crack open the nuclear football, then put some faith in her. See, that's me trying to be optimistic in a cloud of pessimism. But I mean, at the same time, this is the bed we made. We got to live with it. And there's also some solace in knowing that this, in theory, will only last 4 years. In theory.
In theory.
But I mean, again, the man is, it's going back to 2020 again, where your candidate is pushing 80 years old. Well, now the president-elect is pushing 80 years old.
Yeah, and then that means we have couch fucker as president.
Yeah, which, like, part of me says,
I'm not really looking forward to what that would look like.
No, and unfortunately, the guy's a politician, so at least, like, he's got that behind him. But, like, are we going to be any better if the 25th gets invoked and he becomes our president? I don't know. Which I think is going to happen. That's
can we just have the AI overlords already and just be done with this shit? Because I'm tired of dealing with this every 4 years. That's all I'm saying. Like, just let robots control us by now. Like, please, like, let's have the AI. Let's just bring it on now. Bring on the alien overlords. We can't do it. This shows that we don't got it. Just please put us out. Let us just play like Fallout all day. And
it's like
just,
the president
have chicken
from
nuggets.
It's the president from Fallout 3. He was a computer, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, 4 years can go by fast, but hopefully we're still here in 4 years. I mean, there is that. But do you think that for all the shit that we gave it, the shift, the quote unquote shift working at McDonald's, and then being a garbage man for a day, do you think that worked in Trump's favor at the end of it?
Yes, because this is why representation matters. It is really dumb, but if people feel any modicum of represented by you in the actions that you're taking, then they're going to want to believe and help you and support you. It is that simple.
Yeah.
So if you relate to people in that way, if you don't appear in a way that is divisive, if you force people to see you that way, like, then that's different. I do also feel like there's a lot of sexist overtones in who we choose to decide to, lead us, but like that's a different conversation for another time.
Yeah. So you had Trump doing the blue collar jobs, briefly, quote unquote, and you had AOC and Tim Walz on Twitch playing video games.
Yeah.
And not even Tim Walz busting out his crazy taxi skills could save him.
What are you, stupid?
It didn't happen.
I mean, like, again, the people that were already on his side appreciated that.
Right.
That is my point.
Do you think they were too nice? Harris and Walz? Should they have been more cutthroat?
I mean, I guess I don't even really know how you could have done anything differently besides like actually being there. Like if there was like footage of like Kamala like out there like with people like doing stuff also, maybe, because that would actually kind of show a different side and people like, wow, maybe there's more to this person than just like the stuffed shirt that we always see in her record and like all the other stuff and like everything else that people just like attribute to her. um like that's the whole thing with politics. Like, it is stupid, it is entertainment, it is like Hollywood, it is dumb. That is where we are. It is not, we do not have intelligent political discourse that like that way anymore. Like once Trump really kind of made it part of the lexicon, that's why whenever I laughed whenever I heard the phrase new normal, like, y'all are stupid. Like that's not what's going on. That's not what's happening here. But eventually we'll realize what's going on when things happen and everybody's confused at why things happen. And I just wish it happened when I was like, 80 and was like getting ready to die. But
Well, as long as there's no significant changes to the U.S. Constitution, hopefully in 4 years, this will be behind us. But you never know what's going to happen. I wouldn't be shocked if in 4 years Vance runs and wins.
But listen, that's why I'm saying, like, I joked about it before, but like, if we need to build a straight white male as a Trojan horse for our issues, God damn it, let's put all of our bullshit aside and just let's just do that and suck it up so that the other people that just want to be able to vote for a man can just be able to vote for a man if it helps us actually have an easier time of doing stuff. And like, I just want to do anything at this point. Like, I don't even want to have a conversation about the way things should be. Is like, they aren't going to be that way. We have to fight and work with people that are literally stupid and do not want to see the perspective that we have. We have to adapt. We have to come up with a different carrot on a stick and then maybe and do it that way. Maybe. I don't know. Just people need to just like have reality slap them in the face to be even come up to the door of being able to see that maybe, just maybe, the people that they're supporting don't have their best intents in mind.
Yeah,
but it's a big thing.
I tell you who I feel bad for is Jimmy Carter, because that man persevered and wanted to live to be he wanted to make it to be able to vote for Kamala, and he did. And he's still going, but that was like his end goal.
Wasn't he?
Make,
Isn't he on hospice?
that dude somehow is going to live to be like 120, and it's going to be
Don't
thanks to
say it.
peanuts. He already made it. He already made it. He already made it to 100 years old. He's accomplished. He's won life. Ladies and gentlemen, Nate Fillers joins us.
Hi, friends.
Hi. Don't be afraid to crank your mic,
Oh, true. I forgot.
or at least just get your
Or
face right up. On it.
transform it into a cat.
Look at those glasses. Look at him.
What's up?
He's looking spiffy.
I got some style.
You got some style.
Sorry.
So I guess that wedding you were working didn't run as late as you thought it would.
Is that better, by the way?
That is better, yes.
Sweet. Yeah, for some reason it defaults to like 30. I don't understand. Okay. I don't want to talk shit, but this was just a little weird, so it's not really talking shit. It's just a little strange.
Sure.
The way that it was, so here was the deal. The deal was I was supposed to work from 1 to 7, but the bride wanted me to go till 8, but didn't want to pay the extra hour. So what she did was she said, "Here's dinner, take an hour break." I was like, okay, you know what? That's fine. That's not usually how we do things in wedding. It's usually like from the time you get there to the time you leave. But in this case, we're like, that's fine. I mean, it's a little weird, but it's fine. So I was scheduled till 8. And then it was like a half hour away. So then I got here and then I was like, hey, you guys still doing it? And
then here we are. See, I thought she's like, here's dinner. Why don't you go take an hour break? And you're like, okay. And you just leave. And you just don't come back. And you have to come do the podcast.
Yep. That's a better story. I need to lie more.
Well,
Okay, so catch me up to speed of where we're at in the conversation, because I know I just like derailed a whole bunch of shit.
no, it's okay. I do want to just preface this while I still have, well, it's still fresh in my mind while I still have the chance, is after this episode, and this I think is probably the second time in like the history in the 15 years we've been doing this show where I gotta say, after this episode, there's going to be a significant decrease in the political coverage. And A, it's because the cycle is over, but B, we're going to be just repeating ourselves every week if we just keep talking about this. The opinions aren't going to change. It's only going to feed a sour mood. So obviously this episode is to just really like just get the thoughts, the immediate, the post-mortem, if you will, just get that out there. But then like we can't spend another 4 years dedicating so many episodes of this show to this topic.
With the caveat that like it's probably gonna still happen a little bit, but we're at least making the mental stance to not like dwell on it like this. But we need to get it out at least for now.
Sure. If Trump literally shits himself on camera, and I'm like literally talking about when Bush puked in the emperor's lap, and it was so obvious, like he just like leans over and just there's a geyser. I'm literally talking like a chocolate fountain coming out of Trump's pants. Then of course we're going to talk about that, and significant time will be dedicated to it. But otherwise, after this episode, I'm making it a point to make sure the political content is significantly minimized, because the last thing I want is to have any of you, Zach, Nate, or anyone listening to suddenly be in a bad mood, in angry and sad just because of the way things are going.
Well, hey, only 50% of our listeners will be upset. Or no, sorry, 40, whatever. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm doing the math.
Some odd amount. 48.
Crazy.
48.
Really, like, really crazy. Like the fact that, like, okay, so he said black people will like me because I'm a criminal. Okay, that wasn't a deal breaker. And then he's like, hey, we're going to take away abortion rights. And women were like, okay. And then, like, Taylor Swift was like, this guy sucks.
Yeah, somehow that wasn't enough.
And then that wasn't. And like I did like the math, like even if you took the votes from like Jill and like the other candidates, um, it still wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So it's like either that, like a huge portion of people like just didn't vote. So it's like those people all voted. Technically, they voted for Trump.
Well,
Um,
the scary thing is how many people Google reported this. How many people Google searched did Joe Biden drop out? Apparently, a lot of people didn't know this.
That is the
really?
other thing that bothers. Yeah, no, really, like that's the other thing that kind of bothers me about like, and just like this election cycle really made me think of like all of like the old like things that the founding fathers said is like and it like and like an uninformed populace to me is always going to vote against the best interests, and like here we are, this is like exactly it. It's because we got people who are like, making bro votes, or like people and like the fact that like Taylor Swift saying what she did about who to vote for, and then that not really shifting the Rubicon at all just tells you how little celebrity endorsements actually matter, and that
Yeah.
like it's okay that like, it's cool that it happens, but like we shouldn't get excited about it like we have
Right.
been
Yeah.
anymore. Like this should prove
No.
it to us. Like Taylor Swift said that, and we're still here. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. It like someone who literally sells out stadiums and ruins freeways and like and people working and doing things during the day when the things are happening couldn't shift things
It's so
for.
comical you say that because when the second time I saw Taylor in Miami, Ivanka Trump showed up and we're all standing outside when her motorcade appeared because she had a Secret Service and state police escort.
Mm-hmm.
And
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, seeing that just I'm seeing that I'm like, well, I'm just gonna scratch my head here in confusion because
Yeah.
this has to be an awkward conversation to have. Like, but Nate, I'm sure you saw when Paramore was playing at the iHeart Festival about a month or so ago, and during the appropriately named song "Big Man, Little Dignity,"
Yeah.
Haley getting on her knees right in front of the camera, basically begging us to make what we thought was going to be the right decision. Uh,
Okay. So I don't know if you guys talked about it because I mean you haven't posted this yet, so I couldn't listen to it. uh, but from my understanding, this is what happened. What happened was you had one side that was pushing a bunch of fear. You had the other side pushing fear, but like in a more like polite way.
that's a good way of putting it.
But what it came down to was that Kamala didn't really tell us what she was going to do when she really, really, really needed to. Because at least with Trump, we had him before. We kind of knew what he was about. It was kind of like, okay, like same old, like that's what he said he was going to do these things. He did some of them. Like you can piece it together. But then you had this candidate with which a lot of people were like, this is really weird because she didn't even get like, she wasn't supposed to be the nominee. So there was that. But then further, like, add to the fact that she didn't really vocalize policy as much. She just put fear about this other guy and was like, if he does this, this will happen. And then kind of completely forgot that, hey, maybe we need to know what you're going to do.
Because it is still a presidential, like even though it's Trump, it's still a presidential election, and
Yeah.
like there are still optics and things that you need to do as a presidential candidate that just didn't happen. Like there's a lot of things, like I agree completely where you're coming from on that, because it kind of seems like that's part of where things missed the mark, and like there was a lack of resonance because of it, and like you kind of need to resonate with, especially like I feel like the most important thing in a political like a presidential election is understanding the pulse of where everyone is, and especially when people are so misinformed about things. Honestly, I really wish we could start having more politicians that try to understand what people are misinformed about
Yeah.
and start using that as part of their platforms, and then also doing actual things to draw real concrete examples to things that they're doing to help not just the people in their local community and their constituents, but other people. Because like, as dumb as it is, things like Trump like riding around on the dump truck and like being in McDonald's that we all laughed about actually are the kinds of
Yeah.
things that you do that ingratiate yourselves to people. So like, that's my whole point, is like, we need to stop wanting to have feel good superiority moments, recognize them for what they are, and be realistic about how to actually connect with the people that want things to work right, but their attention has already been grabbed by someone else that's basically taking advantage of the misunderstanding and the misunderstandings that they have, and the things that they don't really try to get, I guess.
I just wanted you. It's me. It's your favorite president. I'm back.
I'm so tired. I want to just stop talking about it. And like, what is SNL gonna do?
He's gonna give that James Austin Johnson, who's a phony, but he's gonna have a great job, a great gig for the next 4 years, and I would hire him in a second, then fire him immediately. Let me go back, if I may. Let me go back.
What
and
I
that's
want
very
SNL
unusual for
to
me
do-
to be polite. You called it the dump truck. It was the Trump truck.
Oh God.
It had my name on it, Trump, right there on the side. As you saw me open the door, which I did perfectly, by the way. Opened it with no help. It was the Trump truck.
What I would
It's
like
like
them
if
to
Trump was
do-
trying to be the Cookie Monster.
Say that 3 times fast. Trump truck, Trump truck, truck. Grabble, grabble, grabble.
Wait, no, that's Hamburglar. Sorry.
So what
Dear
have you
Lord.
guys been telling yourselves to kind of like chill out?
I think back to it was Weezer's comeback album in 2014, and the title was "Everything Will Be All Right in the End."
Yeah, I mean, nothing's happened yet, of course. So we're not. It doesn't really do you any good, I guess, to preemptively be, because like everything's up in the air. I mean, we're just as in the dark as we were before. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, he may or may not do the things that we were afraid to, but like, you have to keep in mind, like, both sides were just pumped fear after fear after fear. And it's like, who knows, like, what's legitimate and like what's really going to happen. I mean, I know it sounds so stupid to say, of course, especially if, you know, things do go the way that we're saying that they're going to go.
Mhm.
Like if things are going to go that way, it does seem kind of weird to just kind of cop out and be like, well, we don't know, he might not, he might just be, he might be good, you guys don't know, he could
I
be,
mean,
he could be pretty good, he could be a good guy. Like it's stupid to come at it that way,
yes.
for sure. But I mean,
Yeah, that's
it does it. I mean, just as harmful that. Okay, we're fucked. We're all gonna die.
right. That's
Yeah,
just
that's
as bad.
also not really constructive right now if nothing's actually happening.
yeah. That's
Um,
that's the mindset I'm taking. Nate is just thinking about how the first day, the morning after all this happened, and after really processing it, just thinking like, and then really just talking it out too, and realizing like, look, half the shit that I am afraid of and have been afraid of is it actually going to pan out? Because like, think about the border wall, for example, that thing he was going to build, that didn't, like a section of it was built.
Yeah.
That wasn't a thing.
For me, what will be important is hopefully they stay stupid, disorganized, and all basically it was a bag of grifters, and they were basically all fighting with each other, running over each other's interests, and it was just like a circus by the end of it, where barely anything could get done, let alone things that were bad actually happening. And that's why I think we forget like a lot of the stuff that Trump did was just writing executive orders, and just like there's a lot of them. He did a lot of those things that I don't even remember half of any of what happened during that time frame, because after a certain point I was just like, I cannot pay attention anymore. I just am just here to focus on what's happening immediately in front of me, and making sure that the space and place that I'm living in and where I'm at is immediately safe. And like that's pretty much it. And like that's pretty much where I'm going back to again. Because like to me it's more of a mindset of I need to not think too deep about what could be, and I need to focus on what is happening now and what is in front of me, because that's the only sensible thing that'll help me be able to make the right decisions and have a calm mind, as calm and rational as I can, realistically. So
Well,
I don't know.
there's stuff that you can control and there's stuff that you can't.
Right.
I mean, like the way that I see it is, had the tide switched and she won, we'd still be here freaking out because we'd be like, what is going to happen? Like, what is going to be, what are they going to do? Like, like we already knew that when the whole Biden situation went down, they fucking stormed the Capitol, and it would be like, okay, I feel like it would be like that, but on steroids.
Yeah,
I
as
mean, maybe it
awful
should
as
be like,
that
is
would
today the
be.
day she's gonna get shot? Like, it's
Yeah.
tomorrow. It's gonna be. It would be like, are we gonna break out in war? Like, it's all this like, okay, it's just a weird feeling to have of like, well, we avoided that because let's face it, Democrats are gonna be so scared and angry, but they're just gonna complain about it. Whereas Republicans are gonna be scared and angry, and they're gonna be like, we gotta fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what's been proven. It's what happened in the past.
Yeah.
It's like that's just what it is. It's like Democrats, they say a lot of things and then they just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Are
And then
you
it's the opposite for the other side. So it's like, I get it. I
are
get it.
you like worried that had she won, like, I guess like not worried, but just you kind of mentioned it earlier, but just expectant that January 6th would have happened again, or like something much worse would have occurred?
Worse.
You think it would have been worse?
I think it would be worse because um it was more time was spent focusing on the fear of like she's just going to continue to ruin the economy because like, okay, shit hasn't been great, yeah, but then they use that to like dig it further and be like, okay, she doesn't even have experience because she wasn't even a nominee. She just like got it, and it's like the so then they could spin like more fear, and they ran the whole thing on fear. It was like everybody voted out of fear. So it's like hard for me. I know it's like really easy to be like, fuck you, you voted for Trump. Fuck you, you're a piece of shit. Fuck you. But like at the end of the day, they're just as scared as us. And I'm not saying that makes them okay. And I'm not saying you have to like them. Uh I just for me personally, I I'm living my life in the down the path of, hey, I'm going to keep all my friends that are Trump supporters around. I'm going to listen to their opinions. I'm going to, it doesn't mean I like them. It doesn't mean I like their opinions but I think what's more terrifying is surrounding yourself by like-minded people and never getting any cross perspective. I think keeping yourself in a dark bubble is far more terrifying than anything. At least to me, that's my opinion. And if you're just going to shut out everybody who has like a different like, and I know it's easy for me to say as a white male, like, but I mean, like, yeah, I have the non-binary thing going on for me, but I kind of keep that to myself. I don't really publicly announce it. But the thing is, like
I like that way of thinking, though.
I mean, it's really helpful in that sense, and like I just
I think it would be nice to. Well, no, seriously, I think it would be nice to have like everybody or people have that round table. Like surround yourself. You're right. Like even if you're doing it briefly, surround yourself with people that you know that you don't share the same opinions with, but knowing that it won't turn into like a crossfire situation where it's just screaming and the message isn't getting across, because you know you're not going to be able to sway someone into
you're not going to change their
aligning with your
mind.
beliefs. Yeah, exactly. But like I don't disagree that you should be able to at least try to see it from their perspective, but that's going to be fucking tough, dude.
I mean, okay, so it's so easy, but that's like the thing. We as a society are way more easily wired to be angry than we are to be complacent or, you know, like calm and chill and comfortable. The first and most powerful emotion that we experience is anger. It makes us feel righteous and makes us feel powerful, whereas depression kind of makes us feel small and little, you know, just not very, like, very weak, whereas anger gives us like energy and power, like strength, and it's just like, so it's by default we go to that one first because it's just like it feels way better to deal with like that than the doom and gloom and the hopelessness of feeling depressed about a certain income or outcome.
Yeah, that was my next question for you, Nate, is you had mentioned that the day after the election you felt hopeless, which is, I think, a fair feeling to have. I would argue, like, as you're reeling in from the news and the outcome, then sure, it's okay. Hopelessness is, I think, a valid feeling to have. Do you still feel that way, or are you looking for ways to move beyond that?
I can't really answer that truthfully because I think what is working for me is sort of denial, and not in the, like, that he didn't really win, but like I'm keep on telling myself like maybe that won't happen. Like maybe the things that I'm worried about, which I'm worried about the tariffs, I'm worried about the deportation and how that's going to affect the economy. And I'm worried because we're going to pay for it. We're going to pay for the tariffs. We're going to pay the price. And if we get rid of people who are willing to farm, then crops are going to be more expensive. It's like I could focus on those, and I do from time to time focus on that, and I get hyperventilated and I have panic attacks and everything like that. And I think what kind of calms me down is this false sense of like, well, we're not there yet. We don't have definitive proof that he was going to do that because let's face it, he likes to fuck with us. Like that's a thing that he likes to do.
I do think he just likes to say shit.
He does because it not one, it gets under people's skin, but two, it distracts from the real things. Like he didn't have to say what he was going to do. He didn't have to have he said, I have a concept of a plan. He didn't have to have a plan because like he shifted the focus so easily. People were like, he doesn't have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And all of a sudden he's like, they're eating the dogs. And now all of a sudden the whole world is like, dude, Trump was talking about like they're eating the dogs.
They're eating the dogs.
And we didn't at all like keep focusing on the fact that the concept of a plan, it kind of got there. It kind of was a soundbite, but they're eating the dogs way outnumbered, like it went way more viral than any of his policy that he or lack of.
Yeah.
You know?
That is a good point. Like just the ridiculousness of what was coming out of his mouth, what continues to come out of his mouth.
That's his strategy.
And like, but it's tough to find what the message is, like what he's trying to get across.
No, the message is to distract us from the fact that he hasn't answered the question. So he's asked the question
perfectly. I mean, absolutely perfectly.
And like that, he's going to continue to do that. He's going to continue to say and do weird shit so that because we focus on that.
Right.
Like that's where our focus is. We could be like, oh, Russia said that they were going to invade us, and Trump was like, come on in. And then people are freaked out about it. And then he says like something like, I'm going to turn into a helicopter tomorrow. And you're like, what? And then everybody tomorrow is like, yesterday Trump said he was going to turn into a helicopter. And then they're like, clearly he's lost his mind. And they completely focus on that. It happens all of the time. Yeah. He just says random shit. And that's like the thing that we focus on. Like when he said like, oh, maybe we could get like disinfectant inside the body or whatever, like completely like deleted everything from that press conference. Everything that we know from that press conference is gone. And it's boiled down to, can we maybe get disinfectant inside the body? Should we drink bleach? Like, do you remember anything else from that press conference other than like maybe we could drink bleach? We maybe should inject ourselves with disinfectant.
That's still like
it's not good.
No, it's not. That's you're right. It's not.
But
suggest that. I do know that like the takeaway from that was blown a bit out of proportion based on what his verbiage was, but still it wasn't like it wasn't by any means intelligent.
Oh, I mean, it doesn't have to be. He's proven that. It doesn't have to be intelligent. It doesn't have to be anything.
All right. Well,
I hate to say it, but like I think he has an idea of what he's doing. He's bad at it, but he has the concept of like, hey, let's shift the focus away from this thing. It's not good. I'm not saying it's like, oh, that's really good that he has that ability. It's really bad because one, it's like we don't have a plan and we're kind of in the dark. And it also like underlines the fact that us as like a country really have this weird obsession with that kind of stuff as opposed to what's really happening in the world. Like how often does like really bad shit happen and then something in the United States like does a weird thing and we're talking about like that, like these didn't happen the same time, but I'm just talking about like, you know, shit going on with Russia and Ukraine, and everyone's talking, well, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. And then all of a sudden no one's talking about how Russia's doing that. And then we have this weird obsession with like looking the opposite way at something else that's completely like meaningless.
Right. We care more about things like this.
Fuck to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's more important than any human life.
Yeah. Joe Rogan might be in the White House, guys.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
podcast is over.
All right. Well, Nate, I'm happy you could pop in.
No, we can't end on that. Are you seriously going to end it on that?
On what?
On Joe Rogan is going to be in the... Get the fuck out of here. We have to leave on like some sort of silver lining. This is supposed to be the therapy episode. I joined this for therapy, damn it. And if
Thanksgiving.
and Christmas.
Okay, so
Did you
let's
see?
just.
Did you see that I left in the group chat earlier today?
I did.
The frightening looking figures I saw at CVS.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was yeah.
Okay, so I guess.
What's your silver lining, Nate? Because I would say that I mean, I don't know if it's right to call it a silver lining, but I'm just going to reiterate what I mentioned earlier is that you can either spend the next 4 years being miserable and depressed, complaining, really just sort of shouting into a void, or you can cut your losses and just try to, if not better yourself, then try to better those around you to make, you know, what you consider to be a more educated decision 4 years from now when we're doing this again.
So, silver lining for me is that in 4 years we never have to hear that guy again, because he says he's never going to leave, but he's like what, 70, 78?
78, yeah.
So like, and we all know by looking at other presidents that 4 years of being a president is like 10 years. Like it ages you so much more.
Oh yeah.
Like you look at every single president when they started being president and when they finished, like it's
look at Obama.
Crazy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and he didn't have 9/11.
No. Every so it ages you far faster than anything else. So that whole like fear of like, hey, I'm not gonna leave. Well, like he's gonna die. Like, you know, it's not like, I mean, not that I think that our government is gonna completely let him take over, like dictator wise.
Right.
Like I don't think like I mean, it could be somebody else somewhere down the line that he like empowers, but silver lining, 4 years, never have to hear about him again.
Yeah, you really don't have to hear about him again. You better hope, and I said this earlier before you joined, but you better hope that he doesn't try to change the Constitution to eradicate the amendment put in there because of FDR with his multiple terms.
I mean, our government is already picking and choosing parts of the Constitution that it like abides to and ignores. I mean, look at separation of church and state. We don't do that at all. We're like, hey, churches, these states are really religious and they don't like abortion, so we're going to ban abortion. And it's like, well, that's not really separation of church and state. If it's your belief, your church's belief that abortion is bad, and then you're creating a policy based on that church belief, that's church. That's not separation of church and state. That's straight up like, hey, this is the church thing and we're going to do it.
Yeah.
So we already pick and choose like what we like follow and what we do. It's already changed, for fuck's sake. Yeah. And it's already not what it was when it was written, because guns were different when that was written. Like freedom of speech, we didn't have the internet when it was written. Like now everything's like fucking crazy and all the rules have changed. So like it's so outdated that it doesn't matter. I hate to say it, but it's like, it's so easy to just be like, well, everything's different now. So it's already changed. We're okay for the most part. It's not like, you know, it sucks. It's scary to think because we don't know where it's going to evolve to. But I mean, we've been living in that change for a while now. Like it started, I mean, it started with Trump, of course. The whole, you know, Roe v. Wade thing.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like that, of course, happened with him. But I
But
mean,
that
I'm
was
sure.
it wasn't that contingent too on Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Like she was like the last thread holding it together. Like the second she was gone,
Yeah,
that sort of spelled the end for it right there. Like the moment she died,
yeah. There's a
the
whole
first thought
huge.
everybody had
Yeah,
was Roe v. Wade is gone. That's it. It's
yeah,
done. Someone's gonna
yeah,
kill it.
yeah. I mean, but I'm sure if I did more research, I could be like, you know, this is when this changed. This is when that changed. Like it's the whole freedom of speech thing is just such a weird. We're at a weird place for it right now because it's like the things that you say are now like tattooed on a place like forever. Like that wasn't a thing when they wrote like any like it's only that's only been a thing for like the past like 30 years.
Mhm.
So like I just to continue the whole idea of like silver lining that's we don't have to worry about him in 4 years. There's the really terrible like hey maybe it won't happen, maybe it won't be as bad, maybe he was trolling us, maybe we were misled, maybe because I mean there's a lot of that happening with the media. It's like that's what I was talking about with like keeping yourself in your own little bubble. Like it's really easy to be like surrounded by all this news that's pointing you in a certain direction and you don't take in any perspective from the other side, so it's really easy to just be like okay, this is scary because fucking our media was is like it lives off of us being afraid. So it so easily pushes that because they know that's what sells. So I don't know. I just
Yeah,
think, yeah. What do you think, Zach?
I mean, I'm of the same opinion. Like, I kind of just think at this point, I mean, you can really only just take kind of each day and
Yeah,
each week at a time. Like, we don't know for sure how it's going to be until we're in the middle of it again.
yeah.
So it's not going to be helpful to over
Preemptively, yeah.
right like it we kind of have to let ourselves just let time unfold again, like, and it's going to be exhausting again, and there's going to be a lot of things that we are going to be upset to hear about again, and we can only hope that you know things stay relatively normal enough that we don't have to actually resort to more serious or drastic things. I mean, we won't know again until we're in it, but
Which is it's just the way it's always been with every
yeah.
new president. It's like a ton of people were terrified when Obama took over. And I'm not saying Obama was perfect by any means. Definitely not perfect, but it like with every new president, it's like, uh-oh, like and he's not I know he's not a new president per se, but it's like this is just politics, man. Like they I said it like on Facebook, I made a whole big stink about I'm so sick of politicians weaponizing fear. Like this it's just it drives me insane. But like just like the media, it pushes people. Fear is like such a more like encouraging factor. You know what I'm Hey, I just got off of a really long shift, so sorry if like some of it's not making sense.
It's
But
cool.
No, I
I
would
think
no,
I want
I hear you.
I think the other thing I want to put in my silver lining package, and I don't know how true this is, but somebody was putting it out there, was like that Plan B has a 4-year shelf life.
Oh yeah, yep.
So like do what you can with that, you know?
Yep. Yep.
So there's methods and we're half of us are in this together.
Yeah.
It's not just like, you know, it. He did get the popular vote, I guess, but
Which is still baffling.
Which is who knows, like, because we're not Democrats are not going to push the narrative of a false election. Like,
No.
even though like his side like burned ballot boxes and like did all this other weird shit, and like there was proof that like he even tried to get more votes from other people. That doesn't matter to Democrats. Democrats are very like, eh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like commanding respect, right? It's precedent setting. It's they don't want to stoop to the same level that the Republicans stooped to 4 years ago, and Trump's supporters especially. And just we talked about this earlier in the episode, but they don't want to set the groundwork for another coup attempt, another January 6th.
That's a very nice way of saying that they're pussies. I'm just joking. I mean, I'm not, but like I kind of am.
No, you're not wrong. Kamala didn't fight. She didn't.
No, she literally was like, "We're not gonna do anything. We're gonna hand over it peacefully because that's the way it should be." Yeah. And it's like, well, they're definitely not like eye for an eye. It's like you treated us this way, so we're gonna get you back. And it's like even like I forget his name, but somebody that I follow, Walterson, whatever. The point is like he put out a statement being like, if things go the way that I said that they were gonna go, I'm not gonna say I told you so. I'm gonna help you guys out, and that's very much the other side.
Yeah. I think that's a perfectly human response. That like we talked about it a while ago when after the VP debate happened, but
yeah,
like Zach mentioned earlier, like what happens if like Trump dies in office and Vance takes over, and Vance being a politician, but like I still respect the moment that he had with Tim Walz during the debate when Walz talked about his son seeing someone getting shot. Like. Mm-hmm. Dislike the guy all you want. You're never going to get something like that out of Trump. But if we do get stuck with Vance for whatever reason, there is a stronger possibility of some degree of humanity coming out of the guy, even if like he's 100% God fearing or even the second coming of Trump. At least it's like he could be. What if Trump were human?
Yeah.
Well, you get the couch fucker.
It's Walter Masterson. I follow him on the Instagram. He posted this. If you voted for Trump, I don't like you, but I care about you. A lot of you have been gloating in my DMs. When Trump's error policies destroy your access to healthcare, education, clean water, I will not be there to gloat. I will be there to help you organize. Like that's a completely different like mindset to when Biden won. People were like, fuck you, and like attack and very violent and not my president, and like putting things on the gas stations that's like, thanks Biden, like really yeah, like doing like really nasty shit. And it's like we're just like, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah,
it's really weird. I think.
What a positive sentiment from a Masterson. We don't have a lot of those lately.
True.
Get it?
Yeah.
Get it?
I mean, he's great. I mean, like he's somebody I would recommend following because he spent a lot of time like trying to educate MAGA. I forgot. I was like, it's not magma. MAGA. He did a lot like going to rallies, and he was trying to like educate them like how tariffs work, and like and he like got a few to be like, huh? Like really? Obviously, it wasn't enough, but I don't know, man. It doesn't really. It's so easier to say than done, but it doesn't really help us to be like, well, we might be in war next year. We might have to, you know, eat rice and beans because nothing else will be affordable and all of the other things will be gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can do that, I guess, but it's not productive, you know. There's productive worry and there's not unproductive worry.
That's part of the reason why, like, as much as I hate it, as much as I don't want to fall back on this, there is still a sense of normalcy that, like, not just people but corporations kind of want to have happen.
Yeah.
So that's the only other thing I'm kind of being like, hopefully there's enough of those interests that are just like, could we not, like, we actually don't want things to go like, you know, apocalyptic. Like, we would like actually like to actually have a regular economy where we make money normally and we don't just have to only, you know,
Yeah.
like I don't know. I feel like there is some undercurrent of that too, because no one wants things to be so catastrophic that things are destabilized. But if things happen where that just kind of is a result of, you know, situations and people making decisions, then well that'll suck.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like, don't you think it would piss off like the entire country if like he did those things and people are like, wait, we're paying for the tariffs? Wait, crops are bigger or
Well, I mean, that's
crops
literally
are
what's
more
going to happen. But
and
yeah,
then it's like, well, then don't you think we would impeach? Like, I mean, I'm not.
I mean, probably not, because again, my problem has never been just with Trump. It's been the people around him that are going to utilize his station for their gain. That's always been my issue. So like, I've always been more afraid of the people around him than him himself.
But he drags them down, so it's like his circle is always
Not only
getting
drags
smaller.
them down, but everybody else is so in it for themselves that they end up like destroying each other, trying to get their own things. Because like every news cycle that we heard out of his administration before was like that. It was like everybody turning on each other, or people afraid to like say something to someone because you might get fired the next day.
Yeah, I mean, so many people that were in his circle like got in some serious trouble
Mm-hmm.
or lost their job.
And I
It was
mean,
like
like,
that's the choices that he gave them was like, you either commit crimes or I fire you. And be
Yeah,
like, okay, you're firing me, or I'm committing the crime.
yeah.
And
Okay,
does
well,
he
yeah.
care? Does he care?
No.
Does he care that like Giuliani, for example,
No.
is literally homeless?
No.
I mean, yeah.
Well, what do you care? Why would he care about that?
Exactly.
He doesn't care about his like his own debt. I remember I was reading somebody responded to Tiffany Trump's tweeting something. He's like, he would need 3 tries to pick you out of a lineup, honey. It's all right. You don't have to come to his defense.
Yeah. That's great.
Zach, quickly, I just want to mention we will wrap up this episode, this installment of Hardly Focused, but then we will switch over to the Solid Listen Patreon for one additional non-political segment. But Zach, your silver lining, if you have one.
Let me think.
Don't hurt yourself.
Honestly, the only thing for me is, my hope is that people have actual conversations, because it's not a bad thing to try reaching across the aisle to a closed mind, but there is a limit to it. And I just want people to learn where that is in their own lives so that they can understand, like, they can actually tell the difference between the people that are worth making the time and effort to talk through those kinds of things with and get them to understand. And, you know, the other people, there's like, this is not going to go anywhere and I should probably just let this go. So like, I would just hope that people compound their learning and understanding about what is actual helpful discourse with other people, because you know there are some people that just aren't going to be ready or be willing to hear things out, and honestly I can't really fault anyone for cutting people out of their lives who are like hold stances that upend the people that they love or like hurt them. um like so I guess like I don't know, that's really my only silver lining is that like at least people hopefully will be learning something about the state of things as they are now and kind of why it's important not to just stay in kind of an echo chamber, because like that's part of the reason why I wasn't as shocked is because I was already prepared. I was constantly popping that bubble of like things are great, things are going to be okay. Like I just think, I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be realistic. I didn't care if it made me sad or upset, because like I wanted to be able to build up a tolerance to that level of distress, because like that's what I wanted to grow into. Because if we have to deal with that stuff, like just what we were talking about before, it's not going to be helpful to be panicked and be anxious all the time. We're not going to be able to help the people that we want to help or ourselves if we're like that. So all we can do is keep using the tools to our advantage to make things more inconvenient for the people that are trying to get things done that are awful. We just need to keep doing that. And like that is for me the only silver lining is that determination and perseverance and the fact that there are actually people out there that would just like life to still be normal, would just like to be able to have the enjoyment of the seasons and the holidays and just let things be and have things to look forward to. And like the more that things get upended and the more that things get awful, the more that things disenfranchise other people, usually that's kind of when public opinion starts changing. You start making people annoyed and irritated, or you take away the things that are integral that make their life easier, like tariffs possibly making certain things that we need to get all the time a lot harder to come by would be a great example of a potential thing. That's the only thing that I'm hoping happens, I guess, in a very long-winded way.
And that's, I guess, another silver lining for me is just the realization that like we should be very concerned about things like his tariff plan, but then it's a matter of, okay, will it actually be enacted? Will it happen? Because we don't know that.
I mean, well, if it does, then I'm going to lose a lot of weight. So there's a silver lining.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to going to change if that goes into effect, and you better hope it doesn't. But if it does, just be ready.
I almost don't want to like add to it because I know we're trying to like wrap up, but can I?
Go ahead.
Is it allowed?
Sure.
Are you gonna allow it? Is it gonna be okay?
Is it gonna be okay? It's gonna be tough, but we'll make it work.
I think I'm trying to like figure out what's the best way to say it, but I have to go by like what Zach did. I did the exact opposite of what Zach did, which is why the next day I was like, I feel hopeless. The night of the election, I was like, well, like I went to bed and Hillary was winning and I woke up and Trump won. So like it's not unheard of that, he's winning now and I could go to sleep and something could happen. And then I think that's what made it really worse for me. It's just that having that contrast. But to like kind of further the whole idea of there's going to be people out there that are going to be like really nasty about it. I think it's really important, as hard as it is don't write those people off, because I think the worst thing that we can do to ourselves is just keep ourselves in this really small little bubble of if we are always surrounding ourselves with people who agree with us, then we're not moving forward, we're not growing, we're not getting any better. We're just going to stay the same, and we're not going to push ourselves to be a better person. It's when you're challenged, when that's when growth happens.
Yep.
And when you're surrounding yourself with people who agree with you all the time, they they tell you, "Oh, Nate, all your jokes are perfect." That doesn't help. Like it's like, or like, "Hey, the world is this way, and this is what's right, and this is what's wrong." You never push your boundaries, and like if you step outside for a second, being like, "Okay, like maybe this is the thing, maybe like." The other thing that really fucks with me is that I know so many really, 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 really nice people that are just Trump supporters.
Yeah.
It's a fucking paradox, because you're like, well, he he represents all this stuff, and that's not a deal breaker. But what does it for me is, I talk about this on the show a lot, is I have given up on that concept of, hey, if that person is supporting a thing that I don't agree with, I can't associate with that person, because I really like chocolate, and chocolate is probably one of the worst products out there in terms of how it treats workers, and it's slave labor and child labor. Like, it's probably one of like the fucking most evil things, one of the most evil things. But am I going to be like, I guess I'm not eating chocolate anymore? No. Are you going to like, are you going to unfriend me because I still eat chocolate and that supports this other stuff? You can do whatever you want. I just, my point is like literally everybody is horrible.
Yeah.
Everybody has things that are just not good. They're deal breakers. They don't align with your beliefs. And I know that the stuff that Trump supporters are pushing are really fucking, they're not just like, oh, little things. They're big things that are really, really big deal breakers. But I don't know, if you're always looking for those things, you're always going to find it. If you like a band, if you do enough research, you're going to find a thing that's going to make you not like that band. They
Yep.
did something at some point, or they did something to somebody, or they mistreated women, or they did this, or you know, we're all really just trying to figure shit out, and in doing so, we've done terrible things. It's just everybody. And if you're going to write um these people off because they did a thing that doesn't align with your beliefs, but then you're not going to write off other things, I don't know, that just kind of makes you sound kind of like a hypocrite. If you're like, uh Chick-fil-A is delicious, but they support the Salvation Army, which is very anti gay, lesbian, queer, like, you know yeah, that's true, that's real. But then you're drinking Coca-Cola and you don't know what they did, and you're like, Coca-Cola's fine. It's like, okay, if you want to do research, like if you're going to do the research on Chick-fil-A and be like, if people who eat Chick-fil-A are fucking terrible, well, then it just makes it seem weird that you're not like, people who eat Nestle's are equally bad, because that's supporting children being slaves at harvesting the cocoa beans. Like,
Well, to,
there's a whole, we could do a whole episode about it,
to
but we
that
won't.
point, to that end, do you like heavily judge anybody that you see driving around in a Tesla?
Yeah, I mean, they're not great.
To your point, Nate, m- everybody has inherent biases. The thing is, a lot of people are not really aware of the impact um living those biases really has on other people. And if anything, people should be more mindful of, where other people are coming from. But I still feel like there's a fine line, and that it is everyone's choice on what emotional involvement that they're willing to make for that. Because
Of course.
if you're the kind of person that wants to provoke a different idea and thought, then you need to understand that there are going to be some people that you either won't be able to get through, or there's going to be some, or that's why I like looking at things as more of the, if I can leave someone with a seed of an idea that,
Yeah.
if something happens that sparks that when I'm not around, and then that's all I can really do. And that I just try to make peace with, because I can't really make someone understand the things that I want them to understand if they're not able, willing, or capable of being able to do that. So if you have to write people off from a sense of safety because they're doing things, then obviously
absolutely.
don't do that. Don't keep them around
Of course.
if you can. But it takes nuance and listening and awareness and mindfulness to be able to balance whether or not there is someone that you can reach out to and have them understand something deeper or not. I just know that this is a charged topic, so there's a lot of ways of feeling about it. And I think the most important thing that there isn't really a true wrong way, and it's better to kind of look at it as people are going to take the approaches that are correct and make the most sense for them in that moment, regardless, because at the end of the day, we're people, and we're dumb, and we're animals, and we're dumb.
And we're dumb. I would appreciate you saying that, because I do want to emphasize that this is what I'm dealing with. This is my perspective. This isn't me saying, hey, Jack, hey, Zach, you guys are hypocrites and you need to start liking people. No, this is just my dilemma, and part of dealing with OCD is it's hard for me to do that because I don't like hypocrisy. And the irony with that is that you can't run from it. You're going to do stuff that is hypocritical. You're going to do all this stuff. You're going to contradict yourself left and right. But I think, of course, if you don't feel safe around certain people, of course, don't be like, well, I got to get their perspective because Nate was no, that's that. I'm glad you pointed that out for sure. I just mean I mean, you don't have to hang out with these people. You don't have to go out of your way to be nice to them. It's just
but be aware, be aware
that they exist.
It's more so be aware that it's okay to distance yourself from people and ideas that are harmful, but it's important that you don't close yourself off from being able to see perspectives, because if you do that, then you're doing the same thing. You're allowing your own worldview to close off anything else that could be questioned, and that's not healthy for us to do, because then we lose sight of things, and that's how history repeats itself. That is how history repeats itself.
Yes, correct. Sorry, that's what I wanted to say, and I did it. Thank you for letting me have that conversation.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for just doing that. I appreciate it. Zach, same for you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, your views.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, letting me vent and deflate, and it feels better to just talk about it,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I hope that we can find the positives, or at least find a way to move on and be positive, and not worry about what might not happen, because all we have right now is just, I guess the fear.
Yeah. I mean, this is all ideas.
Don't give into it.
This is all ideas and plans that come from a guy that we know fucking lies a lot.
Right.
A lot. During the debates, they're like, how many lies did they almost made a sport out of like, okay, let's see today how many lies he tells.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, take that into consideration. Don't jump into any conclusions. Hang on. I mean, of course, keep like brace yourself for sure. Like, be prepared, but like, don't let it fucking drag you down. Like, don't let it destroy you. Don't let it like undo the person that you are.
And know your limits.
Yeah.
Too, by the way, if you are, I like the idea of opening that discourse with people that you don't agree with, but just know your limits too, because it's always going to be a dangerous. It's always going to be a risk in going into it and not having it completely devolve into shouting and disdain.
Yeah, because you don't know when we start talking about things that validate people's worldviews and make them feel safe, you're gonna get any kind of reaction, and it's not gonna make any sense. Sometimes you're gonna get things that are just like, whoa, where did that come from? Because that's literally it. Like, that's why I just want people to understand the psychological and sociological impact of why people make the decisions that they're making and say the things that they're saying. And like, because like, that's the only way that we can really understand one another, is if we understand why we think and why we feel the way that we do. And you can only do that within reason and within limit. So yeah, don't put yourself at risk.
Yeah.
Well, if you are not joining us over on the Solid Listen Patreon, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We will talk at you next time. See ya. Bye.
Goodbye.
Dramatization may not have happened.